Welcome back to the 2025 Tire Rack One Lap of America, presented by Grassroots Motorsport Magazine, with coverage this year brought to you by HP Tuners. It's a very special episode today. Brian and I are joined by none other than Mr. Angry himself, Mr. Mike Musto. He is the director of programming for Hemmings, as well as a whole bunch of other things. He is a one-lapper. He is really tall. He's Italian, and he has cut his beard since we've last seen him. So, Mike, welcome. Why don't you give us a little bit about yourself?
How you doing, guys? Uh, no, I mean, I think one lap has always been the event in the United States. It just has. You know what I mean? I think that anybody who grew up in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, who has ever heard of the Cannonball Run, who has ever watched Smokey and the Bandit Cannonball Run, get Cannonball, any of those movies where cars have made an impression on them. This is the event that follows every single one of those, and it's the only one of its kind in the world. Um, no, man, it's great to be here. I mean, One Lap has been a part of my life since 2009. I think I've done 4 or 5 of them, or maybe a couple more, in a host of different vehicles. And I think for anyone that's ever been on the fence about doing one, they just have to pull the trigger and do it. You
Absolutely.
know.
Yeah, I mean, you've been a phenomenal brand for us for a long time. We've always appreciated your support, but more than anything, we can't wait to get you back out on the event, because the last time you and I were out in 2019 together, you
Yeah.
had a pretty amazing Dodge Challenger, roll cage and everything else, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. We ran. It was myself and John McGann, and we ran. We were sponsored by Hot Rod Magazine and the House of Muscle, and Dodge gave us a couple of cars, and that was one of the best one laps ever. And I think what people have to understand about the event in its entirety is that um, the first time you show up to one lap and you have no idea what you're doing, and you talk to everybody else that has run the event before, and they just kind of look at you and say you they kind of laugh at you because they're like, oh, you're either going to make it or you're not. You know what I mean? But then you develop this kind of camaraderie with everyone else, and all of a sudden it becomes like this family, so to speak. And you might have to take a year or 2 off or 3 off or whatever the case is, but it's the only event that I've seen where you are 100% welcomed back with open arms. And even if you haven't seen the other competitors in 3 or 4 or 5 years, they're just like, holy shit, you're back. This is great. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's just, like I said, it's the only event of its kind that I've ever experienced that does this. It's amazing. But yeah, the last time we ran was the most insane time we've ever had. Um, and you know, myself and John McGann and you and Brian and tornadoes and floods and things that I never thought I would experience
That wasn't then. The
happened.
No, that
tornadoes
was
were six.
2015.
Yeah,
Oh, was
15.
that 20?
That
That was
was so
15.
you were in another Challenger. You were in the one that David
Oh, I
Keene
was in the
wound up
green
with.
one. I was in the
Yep,
green one. And then McGann and I drove the 2018, the red eye
yep,
one. And that's
yep.
right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in so harking back, so let's recall that one, right? We were going through Norman, Oklahoma. We were stopped on the outskirts, and we were in the Durango RT. You were in the Challenger,
That's right.
and then tornadoes coming through, flooding. I mean, by the right
Yeah.
side of the road, I just remember the culvert, and there was that Dodge Ram that decided to try and drive through the culvert to the off ramp, got stuck, and within about, I don't know, half hour, the water level was up to the guy's tailgate. Um,
Well,
we
I
picked up,
remember I
yeah,
remember going through this one section where it was like a culvert. And I remember you were you were in front of us in the Durango, and as you were driving and the water was getting higher, the Durango, it's
wah,
exactly
wah,
right.
wah,
I
wah,
never
wah, wah,
forget
wah.
the back of the Durango lifted up because it was floating. And the only way that we got through in the Challenger is because you pushed the water out of the way enough for the wheels of the Challenger to stay on the ground as we traversed this like culvert. And I was like, I remember being on the radio with you and Brian and be like, it's very possible we might die right now. And it was one of the most incredibly scary yet amazing yet greatest memories of any road trip. And I've road tripped across this country probably 12 times,
Hmm.
coast to coast, and a host of different things. And they're experiences that will stay with you for the rest of your life, and that was by far one of them, right? But it was also this thing about just being, I think, the four of us being together and
Mhm.
being like, you know what, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, but we're going to be safe because we're all together, if that makes sense,
Oh yeah.
right?
No, the camaraderie there. I mean,
So,
by the way, do you remember the name of the road that was?
Yeah, I
It
was
was
getting ready to ask the
Flood
same thing.
Road.
of course it was. Sure it
Right.
was.
Because we
Like,
stopped by the
of course it
Walgreens
was.
and we're like, how do we get back to the interstate? Like,
Yeah.
oh, go here.
Yeah.
And of course, it's like 3 foot of water on this road. And
Yeah.
anytime a car goes the other way, they're pushing a bow wave right at us. And
Yeah.
even in Durango, it was like, yeah,
Oh,
at the
yeah.
front. But yeah, Flood Road. And then, but it quickly became sombering, if you recall, because as we go under that overpass, we
That's
see
right.
just
The
the apartment
devastation.
complex and the buzz saw from the tornado that just
Yeah.
had gone right through it and bringing out cadaver dogs, and that was and I recall vividly pulling up to the motel outside of where Hallett, where we were heading to, and you and I getting out of the cars, and I just looked at you, you looked at me, and it felt like we just went like 12 rounds with a gorilla.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
physically it was
Oh,
painful and tiring.
it was brutal. And I think
Yeah.
that's I think that's something that people don't understand, right? I think, one lap is an event that will test you, right? It'll test you, it'll test your vehicle, it'll test your fortitude with other people. I mean, it really, it tests you, but in a good way. And I think that for anybody that's ever wanted to do the event, that's ever wanted to do one of the last real driving events in the world, they kind of have to be prepared to do it. I mean, we've all done it with we've all, like, the first one that we've all done. We've all gone, Jesus Christ, I can't believe we just did this. This is ridiculous. I'm never doing it again. And then 3 months later, you're like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to do
What
it
are we
again.
doing this again?
Yeah, when are we doing this again? It just kind of gets in your blood, and it doesn't matter what you do it in. And this is what I always tell people. They're like, I don't have a race car. I'm like, take whatever your daily. You don't want a race car. Whatever you drive every single day, whatever that is, you can take it on one lap. You do not have to go. You are not going to win the event, right? But what you're going to do is get an experience under your belt that very few people in the world have. And if you enjoy automobiles and you enjoy driving, this will open your eyes to a completely different world of what driving actually is, right? And that's what people don't understand. And it's like, and there were two types of people. There's the person that does it and goes, I have to do this again. And there's the other type of person that goes, I'm never doing this again, right? Which is totally fine, right? But it's the experience, and if you like cars, you have to get the experience, right? Because I think that's what so few people miss out today. They just don't do anything.
Well, I mean, let's think about this from a strictly number standpoint, right? So 42 years we've been doing this. So 41 years of history we have so far, right? And you figure we capped the field at 85 cars. Not every year has it been filled in previous,
Sure.
but let's just round it out, right? So that means that a total of 3,500 teams roughly could have done the event. And you figure 2-person to a team, sometimes 3, right? So you figure under 7,000 people have done this.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are repeats, so we're not even looking at new people. So just from a sheer number standpoint, it is still a very rare club who's done something like this. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah. But I think that people, and it's interesting. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to do what I do, and travel all over the world and stuff like that, and talk to people. And they always ask, they're like, well, what's the coolest thing you've ever done? I'm like, it's one lap. Because it is. And again, you go back to so many of the different factors that contribute to why it's a fabulous event, right? Again, the people, the racetrack tracks, the camaraderie, the breakdowns, the comedy, the shitty hotels sometimes, and the meals, and the this and the, you just can't. It's hard to explain. Like, we can explain it, like we talk about it to each other and other one lappers, and they go, "Oh yeah, of course, that's the way it is." But when you explain it to other people, like, they can't. Like, I went to my high school reunion. This is last year, and I was talking to people about it, and they're like, you did what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's this." And they're like, "So you drove like 3,000 miles in 1 week?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we did 9 racetracks in 8 days, and we did." And they're like, "Well, when do you sleep?" I'm like, "Don't worry about that." Like, and you just get so amped on it, and it's one of those things where you can see when you start talking about it to people that have never experienced something like that, you can all of a sudden, you can see the, uh, first you can see the interest, right? Then you can see the excitement. And then all of a sudden that excitement turns to jealousy because they realize that, well, I went to a soccer game with my kid this weekend. And be like, really? Because I drove 178 miles an hour across 3 states and 9 racetracks. You know what I mean? It's just one of those events that it's if you haven't done it, it's hard to explain. You know what I
That's a
mean?
unique way of putting it. I like that. Yeah. What did you
Yeah.
do last weekend?
You can't. It doesn't really get any better. And I think that if you're any type of um, automotive person that loves cars and experienced cars, then you have to do this event. You have to do this event. You know, I don't know. It's my opinion.
Who cares? Brian, go for it, buddy.
So I know a lot of the people that are going to watch this have watched your content over the years, have seen the myriad of cars that you have in your stable, past and present. I'm really digging the Sir Mix-a-Lot Mercedes now. Can't wait to see that. But out of all the cars, past or present, not counting the Charger or the Daytona, which one's your favorite?
Ooh, that's a great question. You know, there are cars that I've had that they all kind of leave a mark. There's like I've had a couple of Trans Ams which I love, but they're so terrible. Like they handle really well. Yeah, they're so they need they need so much more under the hood. The one car, and people are going to laugh at me when I say this, the only car that I've ever sold that I want back is my 1970 Chrysler Newport. It was a 70 Newport Custom. It was the size of a battleship. The rear quarter panel was 7 feet 2 inches long. It was, and it was awesome. And it was just, and I sold it to buy an 81 Turbo Trans Am, which was the biggest chunk of shit that I've ever owned. One of the best looking cars that I've ever owned, but what a shitbox. But there was something about that big Chrysler that I just absolutely adored, and I have yet to find another one. And I've tried to contact the guy that I sold it to, and I've never gotten back in touch with him. It's just one of those cars that I fell in love with and I love because listen, I mean, I'm a big dude, right? I'm 6'4", 250 pounds. I don't fit, like, I'm not a Miata guy. I'm not an S2000 guy. So the bigger the car, the better it is for me. And honestly, Brian, I think that's probably my favorite that I've sold. And it's not that it was fast because it wasn't. It's just, I don't know. There's just something about that car that really got under my skin that I miss. I don't know.
That's like the perfect, for guys our age, that was like the grandpa car back in the 70s.
Yeah, and that's if this is my wife always tells me, she's like, if there's a grandpa car, Mike's gonna want it. And that's very true. I mean, look at my Mercedes. My Mercedes is a 560 SEL. It's the ultimate grandpa car, right? But what is it made to do? It's made to go from point A to point B on as many hundreds of miles of tarmac as you can at triple digit speeds, right? And it was made to do that 40 years ago. And it does it totally fine right now. And I like stuff like that, man. I just like, big comfy stuff.
It's been a running joke that he doesn't buy a car if it has an OBD2 port. It's like anything free OBD2 is Musto's era.
Well, that was, I remember when I brought my 96 Bronco and Solomon, you called me and you were just like, hey man, welcome to the world of OBD2. I just started cracking up. It's true though. I mean, it's true.
Look, honestly, that's, as we sort of work on the classifications for one lap and we got to figure out vintage, I was really tempted to be like, because OBD1 era, it was sort of all different connections and it wasn't standardized. But I think anything before OBD2, we could start really counting as classic at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's
which
funny.
Is scary.
I have, there's just something about older cars. I think we all have our genre that we gravitate to, right? I really like simplicity. I really like kind of analog stuff. Like I think I have 7 cars right now. I only have one that is, well, no, two. I have two OBD. My daily driver is my Bronco and my I have an old Jeep Grand Cherokee that we tool around it. Um, but the one car that's brand new, which is I have a Demon 170. I have 16 miles on it. I'm never going to drive it, so I'm going to sell it soon. So if anybody wants a Demon 170, let me know. But I gravitate to just older stuff. I like simplicity. I like buttons. I like switches. I like analog dials and gauges. I like stuff where I can open the hood and I can look underneath and be like, oh, I know what that is, and I know what this is, and I know what this is. And I think when you're doing an event, something like one lap, there's a wonderful thing about that where you really have to be in tune with your car and understand what the car is doing and why it's doing it. And if you get into a spot, you have to know how to wrench on it or fix it if you can. But yeah, dude, I gravitate to old stuff, and I think it's just because of when I grew up and when I was raised.
But that goes back to your point in terms of doing the one lap in your daily driver, something super reliable, because oftentimes you'll see somebody modifying a vehicle, wrenching on a vehicle, and the reliability, every time you touch that, the reliability goes down by and large. Yes, vehicles, I think today, and you can chime in on this, are largely planned obsolescence. In a lot of ways, they're not built to last a very long time. However, for what they are built to last for, the manufacturers have spent lots and lots and lots of money to get them to that point. So doing an event like the one lap, you're not going to make it better. You're probably going to make it worse if you mess with it.
Dude, you are so right about that. I think that it's like I tell everybody. I mean, we've been running racetracks now for almost 30 years, which is ridiculous when I think about it. But I mean, when I used to be an instructor, we always used to tell people that they'd show up in like brand new 911s or Corvettes. I'm like, what do you drive every day? They're like, a Honda Accord. I'm like, go home and get that and bring it back here.
Yeah.
Right? Because driving is just that. It's learning how to drive, learning the nuances of a vehicle, learning what a stock vehicle is going to do. Like, how are you supposed to get in like a highly modified car and drive it if you don't know how to really drive a stock vehicle, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't push the limits of a stock vehicle, you really think you're going to push the limits of a modified vehicle? You out of your mind, right? So, I think that more people should do that. Like throw a set of brake pads on it, throw some high temp brake fluid in it, go out and wheel your Honda Accord or your Toyota Camry around a racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be fine, and you'll smile from ear to ear every time you do it, and you'll get better as a driver.
Yep, it's a lot easier and more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car super slow. All right, Brian, go for it.
All right, best single day drive you've ever done in the U.S.
Ooh, best single day drive.
He's put the deep thoughts now, right?
Yeah. These are wow. That's a great question, Brian. There have been so many. I mean, I remember. There was one time. This was probably 2008, 2009. My friend Johnny and we both had a week off, and we drove the Charger. We were just like, hey, you want to go to California? I was like, okay. And we literally got in the Charger and drove it across the United States. And there was one point where I want to say it was like Sedona or Monument Valley. I forget where we were. We were in the middle of nowhere in a car we had no business being in, a million miles away from everybody or anything. And we drove through this kind of Monument Valley style area. And I've never seen anything as breathtaking. It was like 5 o'clock. It was like the magic hour. The sun hit. And it was just one of those things where we just kind of stopped and looked at each other. And I don't know. I'm not a super religious guy, but it was one of those things where you just stop and you're just like, holy shit. Like this, we're in one of the most beautiful places on the planet in an amazing vehicle, just chilling. And I think if you like to drive and if you can find yourself in a moment like that where you have a special car that brings you to a special place at a time that you didn't realize was special, it's pretty cool. So I think that was probably one of the most memorable, and I've got a ton of memorable ones, but that one just kind of sticks out. Yeah.
Nice. It's interesting, isn't it? the road trips in general and the one lap, I'm always going to bring it back to that. They're
Yeah,
very
of course.
visceral. They're very visceral things, aren't they? Right.
Oh yeah.
And I think in 2019, I saw, at least, when, and I'll bring up the story in a second here, but, obviously we've been friends for a long time. I have
Oh yeah.
tremendous respect for you, but it added a different dimension to you because you were formerly on the East Coast and then you moved to the other coast. And then you went to do stuff with Hemmings and everything. And we'll get into that shortly. You can let us know sort of exactly what you're doing for them and what the future holds there. But if you recall, in 2019, we had Marcus Luttrell out with us, right?
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
for those of you who are unfamiliar with Marcus Luttrell, go read the book Lone Survivor or go watch the
Yeah.
movie. Mark Wahlberg actually portrays him. But the story was the SEAL team that had gone down in Afghanistan. He was the only one who had survived. Another team had gone to go get them out. They perished in a helicopter crash. They were shot down. So a very poignant story. And if you've ever had a chance to go drink with the SEAL, you should, number one, because the stories are amazing and you'll gain a very interesting perspective into exactly what goes on and how hard it is to keep freedom free. But more than that, I recall you getting very emotional around the events of 9/11 because you were there,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you were thanking Marcus for what had gone on, and it's these types of things and the people that you meet that you're not planning on that truly shape your perspective about somebody, as well as you get to learn about the world around you in ways that you hadn't have imagined it. I mean, so
Sure.
it's something that I think everybody should do, not just for the experience of the event, but it's something that I think is good for your soul too, because you get to travel, you get to see things, you get to meet things, you get to learn things that being in an insular world, and I think more and more, so many people are stuck to their screens, right?
Great.
And
Yeah.
don't get out to talk with people, and you don't get a chance to have those meaningful connections and dialogues because it's
Yeah.
so much of an echo chamber. I mean, what do you think about about that?
I think you're 100% right. I mean, it's one of those things where kind of one that brings people from every walk of life, and one of the best parts about it is the event doesn't care about race, it doesn't care about religion, it doesn't care about economic status,
Mhm.
right? You could show up in a 72 Pinto with 7 horsepower, and people are immediately your friends. And
Mhm.
that's what I always loved about the car community is it brings people together that would never have met each other otherwise. The automobile is the great equalizer in the world, and people don't seem to realize that. Um, but yeah, no, I remember meeting Marcus and kind of talking about that, and we met so many other wonderful people on the event where um, you just you might only meet them that one time,
Mhm.
but that one time leaves a massive impression on you. And I think that's one of the coolest parts about it is just, you know, it brings everyone together. And again, most people that have done it are still in one, they will always have that connection. And whether they did a one lap in the 90s or they did a one lap in the 2000s, it's kind of like being in a fraternity,
Mhm.
right? It's kind of like being in, it's like, well, it's like the religion of one lap, right? I don't care if you're Jewish, I don't care if you're Catholic, I don't care what you are, right? It's like if one lap became a religion, the world it'd just be more fun,
Mhm.
right? I think people get along a little better too.
100, and look, that was, I think, our most popular sort of Brockism, or the Brockasm as we call them, the videos
Yeah.
that we have. Is the last question we had asked him a couple of years ago when we were filming stuff, and he said, what does the one lap mean to you? What is it at its core? And he said, for that week, again, like you pointed out, doesn't matter what religion, your politics, whatever the case
No.
is, we're all the same, and the world would be a better place if we all kind of ascribe to that.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not to say that you shouldn't have your own belief systems, but what it is saying is that, similar to the one lap where it's everybody against the event, realizing that everybody has to pull together, kind of listen to each other point of views, and have meaningful and I guess pertinent discussions, as opposed to just shouting and talking points. So this way you can come to an understanding to get to where you want to be, which is
Yeah.
largely a happy and peaceful place.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the goal at the end of the day, isn't it?
I
Right?
mean, your nickname, Mr. Angry, it's a lot easier to be happy than it is to be pissed
Oh,
off the whole time.
It really is, and it's but that's kind of what the event does, right?
Mhm.
It kind of opens your eyes to different things. And the other thing, I think, because you're in a place and in a situation, um, where all the walls, for lack of a better um, thing, are down, you're more apt to get in some really great conversations with people that
Mhm.
you would never have talked to otherwise, or never have come in contact with otherwise. So, you can talk politics and you can talk this, but the setting dictates that every conversation you have is a better conversation.
Yep.
It will be a more meaningful conversation, a more in-depth conversation, a conversation that you can have without any pretense going on, any noise in the background. So
Yep.
yeah, it's strange how that happens on during that week, but it does. That's cool.
Absolutely. Except for Subaru guys. Those guys are the worst.
Nah,
Brian,
screw those
let's
guys.
let's bring it back to cars. Go for it, buddy.
All right, so you've done several other road rally type events over the years. Um, my question is, with all these other events, Bull Run, Gold Rush,
Mhm.
et cetera, what makes the one lap different? Why do people always want to gravitate back towards the one lap?
I think uh, obviously I think one is the camaraderie of the event. Two, I really like the idea that everybody wants to help each other. I like the idea that if somebody's broken down, you're not going to have one person try to help you. You're going to have 15, or 20. Um, I like the idea that every competitor is looking out for every other competitor. So, for instance, if you're driving in the middle of the night trying to get to that next track, and you just happen to see another one lapper on the side of the road, you're going to stop. It's not a question of should you're just going to, right? And I really enjoy that part of it, where everyone is looking out for everybody else, because in 2025 that really doesn't happen anymore. And it kind of, it's like that little thing that kind of keeps hope alive. You're like, you know what, let's always do the right thing by everybody else this year, and that's kind of cool. So
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a very high rate of recidivism. Um, so let's get into what you're doing now. So obviously, as we talked about, you've moved
Mhm.
from the east to the west. You've been out there. You've established a lovely little life for yourself. You've got your beautiful wife. You've got your beautiful house, right? So at some point, you've woken up singing that song, I'm sure. But what are you doing now with Hemmings, and sort of where are you pushing it? What's your goal here?
Sure. So Hemmings is, I mean, it's an old company, right? We've been around for 70 years. I'm the director of programming, so I'm in charge of any and everything that has to do with video. And what we're doing is, our whole thing is to get out to the end users, to get out to the driver, right? At its core, Hemmings is a marketplace, right? We advertise cars, we advertise parts and things like that. But my whole thing is, you know, if you want to buy or sell cars, well, then
Mhm.
you have to get people excited about cars. You have to show them what a vehicle is going to do for them. You have to make them understand that you're not you're not selling a car per se. What you're selling, and you're trying to get people interested in, is the outcome of what that vehicle is going to do for them. And that's what people don't understand. And that's what I love about doing automotive video, right? Is that if I can express what a vehicle does, and I can show somebody the outcome of of driving that vehicle, of how that's going to make them feel, how that's going to make them look, what it's going to do for them, as far as just kind of wake them up and get them excited. That's where I'm trying to help Hemmings kind of go. And again, the brand it's a legacy brand. It's been around forever, so we're pushing in that direction, because the fact of the matter is, you know if you're my age, right, I'm going to be 53 next month, so I am not a kid, but by any means. But the fact is, you know, cars now, like the Charger that's behind me, that car's pushing 60 years old. I still, every time I look at that thing, I'm like, God, this thing is great. It's just, I still get excited about that, and I want to be able to showcase that to other people. And I don't care what you drive. If you have a freaking 2006 Honda Accord that you think is the most plain vanilla thing on the planet, I promise you, you give me a day with you in that car, and I will make you change your mind about that car. You know what I mean? And I think it's just showing people the outcome of what an automobile can do for them. That's all.
So you are a car psychologist.
You know what, dude? You're not the first to say that. Every now and then, I'll have people call me, and you kind of, and we have these conversations, right?
Right?
Like, all right, should I buy this car? Should I buy that car? My first question is like, what are you going to use it for? Why do you want it? What do you think it's going to do for you? And you're always kind of either pushing people over the ledge or talking them off the ledge, or having them do that balancing act,
See,
right?
see, we're friends, so a lot of times you'll support my walking up to the ledge. I recall calling you about an Aston Martin Signet that I was kind of trying to find.
Yeah. No.
Well, there was a distinct, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks that I was really gung ho about trying to find one of these things because they were so rare and so unique.
Yeah.
But it really, at the end of the day, it's an Aston Martin version of a Toyota IQ.
Yeah, and I mean, I think every car person out there is you know, where we don't base a lot of things on logic. Like everything we do is kind of based on an emotional decision. I think that outside of cars, we have our personal and our professional lives, but
Mhm.
but cars are the one thing that we can all agree that just kind of, I don't know, it logic just goes out the window. We're just like, of course I should spend, an X amount of money on a car that's not going to be reliable for any amount of time and put me in the poorhouse. And then your friends just back you up and be like, yeah, no, that's a great idea.
It's
You're like, what?
exactly. Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So let me ask you this then, because obviously cars, by and large, now, as you've pointed out already, can't really work on as much. I mean, without really changing the vehicle
yeah,
fundamentally. And we've seen, Miatas get eaten up by race series or by
mhm,
tuners. A lot of the older classics now have been bastardized to the point of it would spend a lot of money that's not worthwhile to restore them. So, what do you think the future holds for sort of the younger car community, and how do they express themselves, and how do they build those emotional bonds with a vehicle that might be very vanilla, and that there's not much that
yeah.
they can really do to it without spending a whole lot of money?
Well, I think, the cool part about hot rodding is that they'll always find a way, right? So, if you talk to an 18-year-old kid right now, they're going to have skills that I'll never have, right? They'll have diagnostic skills on a laptop that they can go in and do stuff with a new car that I'll never be able to do because it's just, I'm not really interested in that. But they will find a way,
Well, they know
right?
where an
So,
OBD2 port is.
well, they do. That's number one, right? But they'll figure out how to modify and enhance because it's just what they do. And I think that, where we kind of gravitated to cars from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and kind of the 90s, they're looking at stuff with a lot more technology because they were raised with that technology.
Yeah.
And they're going, okay, well, if I just have to plug my laptop in and I can give it a tune and I can increase power by this much, or I can go in and I can, play with these injectors, or I can do this, or I can change a pulley on that and get. I love the way that they think, and it's kind of cool because now I'm the old guy, right? And I'm totally fine with that because if you go from kind of being the purveyor of knowledge to all of a sudden now going back to being the student of these younger kids, and it's a really cool place to be, and I like it. I like being surprised all the time by what, like, totally thing. We were at this Cars and Coffee, and there was a dude with a BMW. What's the little one? The i3, the little
What, the
cube,
electric?
the electric. Is
Yeah.
it the i3? Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, this guy, I mean, this is a really cool little car, 3-cylinder, EV, with the range extender, carbon fiber tub. Dude, this guy had wide slicks on it. It was chopped. It was this, and it was a hammer. And I was like, God damn. And it's just hot rodding. It's this,
Yeah.
that's all it is. And it ripped. And I'm always blown away. So I honestly, I don't think we're really in trouble. I think that the younger kids and everything, they will find a way to keep these cars, um, amazing, and they'll have fun with them and they'll keep the hobby alive. I'm not worried.
Awesome. Well, as we start getting into the end stages here, Brian, why don't you go for one of the last ones here?
All right. So, watching your content over the years, the cars that you've always featured, you make living, breathing things like they're almost human. And telling the stories of the cars and their owners, there have been multiple videos where I've gotten misty.
Yeah, me too.
Um, how do you do it?
You know, I I am not a mechanic in any way, shape, or form, right? I've broken more shit than I'll ever fix. Um, but I've always thought that there was an emotional connection to a car, and the car in and of itself is just this inanimate object, right? The car doesn't become anything until the owner gets behind the wheel and starts making memories with it. So the car is just a catalyst for the stories, and that's what I love about the hobby. I love the people. The cars are great. The people are better because the people are the ones that have the experiences. And when you talk to these people, you kind of you can see how emotional they get. You can see how connected they are to these things. And listen, some of these cars they're not good, but they're fabulous because of what the owners have done with them or in them or to them. And that's something that I'm always enamored by. I'm enamored by the stories of the vehicles and of the people. Like, I brought my son home from the hospital in this thing, when he was a baby, and now we sat in the garage for 35 years and we're finally getting to restore it. Or, this was crashed, but, and, it's got 27 mismatched components on it. It doesn't matter because I love it. And it's, you know, my dad, when I was a kid, I'll never forget this. I used to live in Brooklyn. That's where I kind of grew up. And we were driving along the street, and there was this dude, and he was waxing this old, it had to be like a 61 or 62 Impala, and primer and rust holes. And I looked at my dad, I was like, why is that guy waxing that pile of crap? My dad gave me a shot. Like, and I was like, oh. He looked at me and he goes, who are you to criticize that person? He goes, to that guy, he goes, you don't know his story. He goes, you don't know where he's from. He goes, that might be the best thing in that person's life. He goes, and how dare you criticize somebody for taking care of something like that? And that changed my whole world. And it was kind of one of those father-son lessons where you're just like, son of a bitch. And honestly, but it does. And I think that was one of those little life lessons that kind of resonated through time, because you never know the backstory. And when I started doing automotive stuff, that was my whole goal. Find the backstory, find why that guy's old crusty Impala, why he was washing it and taking some, find out what it meant to him. Right. And that's just what I love to do. It's just my favorite thing in the world, is to sit down, like, go to a car show by myself, find some old dude, and just with a car that nobody's looking at, and ask him that one question, and just see their eyes light up. And I mean, it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes you're there for 27 hours and you're like, shit, I gotta go. But a lot of times you just learn stuff. You learn about people. And I think that's the best part of that.
Well, that's I think that's the perfect way to start wrapping up, because I don't think you can really get a much better philosophy than that. And, I think more people need to get smacked on the back of the head and told that as well, in terms of why things are important to other people, not just your perception of them. I think that's a very important lesson across the board, right? Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to see you out again. And we'll start dropping it here, because Friday we're going to release some information about an event, One Lap, coming to you on the West Coast. So absolutely stay tuned this Friday. We are only a couple of days away, so by the time this airs, it'll air on Thursday, I think, as we're traveling. But then tomorrow, we will be releasing some information about a West Coast One Lap for this year.
So good.
So you better be out to that one.
Yep.
We'll have you out. And again, Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure. Can't wait to see you. And thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
I love you guys. And just enjoy this year's.
Love you too, brother.
We love you too. For the 2025 Tire Rack One Lap of America, presented by Grassroots Motorsport Magazine, with coverage brought to you by HP Tuners, the Hemmings Director of Programming, Mike Musto. Thanks so much. Have a great one.
See you guys. Be well.
can't shut it off. Fuck the internet.